Okay, so we've got our data table in place, so let's look at creating an amortization table. An amortization schedule shows the beginning and ending balances of a loan and the amount of payment that applies to the principal and interest for each year over the life of that loan. So if you wanted to pay off a loan after, say, 6 years, an amortization schedule would let the loan officer know what the payoff would be. So we're going to create one, just kind of so you can give an idea of how they work. They're actually very useful, especially if you want to have a better understanding of where you are in terms of how much you still owe on a loan. Very, very insightful. I've already gone ahead and worked on changing some of my column widths. Column G is now at 0.85. Column H is at 6. And then I through L are at 16. So we can start off in H3 by typing amortization schedule, like so. And of course I'm going to steal my formatting again, so I'm going to come over here to C3 and click the Format Painter and click Amortization Schedule. I want this to span from H to L, so I'm going to have to redo the Merge and Center. I'm going to click the Merge and Center button to undo it, and then I'm going to reselect where I want it to be centered and merged, and click it again so that it will take place. So it needs to go H through L. And then I can go ahead and start putting some labels in. So in H4, I'm going to put in year. In I4, I'm going to put in beginning balance. In J4, I'm going to put in ending balance. In K4, I'm going to put paid on principal. And then the last one is going to be interest paid. Remember, when you're doing a loan, you have to, the principal is the amount that you actually borrowed, and then you have to pay interest on top of that. So that's why you have to include all that in there. All right, so we have our column headings. And I'm going to select these, and I'm going to go ahead and center them in their cells. And then I can go ahead and create the years. So I'm going to do a fill series. I'm going to put 1 in H5 and then 2 in H6 so that I can grab those cells, and using my fill handle, I can drag down until I get to 15. This is a 15-year loan. Alright, so all my fill is in now. And then I can start looking at the formulas I'm going to put in. There are 4 formulas that form the basis of an amortization schedule. There is one for the beginning balance, which is usually pretty simple. It's just pulling in the loan amount. So when we look at I5, all we have to do there is make it equal to the loan amount. So I'm going to put that equal to D8. All right, and it will pull that dollar amount in. The rest of them aren't quite so easy, especially the ending balance, because the ending balance involves using an if function and then nesting what we call a PV function in it. And your PV function looks very similar to your PMT function. It has a lot of the same things, except instead of having the loan amount at the very end, you're doing the payment amount. So the PV function, what it does is it presents the value of an annuity, and if you don't know what an annuity is, it's a series of fixed payments, like a monthly payment, that are made at the end of each of a fixed number of periods or months at a fixed interest rate. And you can use that PV function to figure out the amount the borrower still owes on the loan at the end of each year. It has 3 arguments. It has rate, period, and payment, where your rate is the interest rate per payment period. Your period is the number of payments remaining in the life of the loan, and then payment is the amount of monthly payment. So the PV function is used to figure out the ending balance after the first year by using a term that's equal to the number of months for which the borrower still has to make payments. So after the first year, instead of having to make 180 payments in a 15-year loan, you would have to take 12 months off that, so you have 168 payments. So it uses that calculation to figure out how many payments you have left in order to figure out what's due on the remainder of the loan. So we're going to have to use a couple absolutes excuse me, in here, but we can figure the whole thing out. So we're going to start in J5. And I'm going to start off by starting the if function. So I'm going to type in equals if and double click the if. And we're going to look to see if what's in H5 is greater than, or less than or equal to, so let me put that in correctly, less than or equal to the number that's in F5. And F5 has to be absolute, so you need to hit your F4 key to turn it into an absolute. All right, so that's your logical test. The PV function is going to be put in the value if true. All right, so you start off by putting PV and then double clicking it in the list. The first argument is the rate, and remember your rate is the percentage rate that's in F4. So I'm going to put in F4, and I have to lock that in place, so it has to be absolute. And remember, before when we did the PMT function, we divided it by 12. You have to do the same thing in a PV function, because you're making 12 monthly payments. All right, so that's your first part. I'm going to put a comma after it to separate the argument. The second part is figuring out the term for the period. So remember, before we multiplied the number of years that were left by 12. But in order to figure out how many years we have left, we have to make sure that we're subtracting years as we go down the list. So we have to set it up where we'll do that. So I'm going to put in parenthesis and do F5 absolute minus H5. So it'll take a year off every time it moves down. Okay, and I'm going to put a parenthesis at the end of that and a comma to separate the argument. And in the payments, we're going to put a negative sign, and then we're going to do F6, like so. All right, so that's your value if true. I'm going to put a comma after that. And then if it's there's nothing left, there are no more years left, you can put a 0 because there won't be anything left to pay on the loan. All right, and I'm going to hit enter. So I should have the dollar amount show up. The paid on principal, to figure out the paid on principal, you have to take your beginning balance, which is an I-5, and subtract your ending balance. Like so. All right, and then the interest if paid is also another if function. I'm going to set that up like this. All right, so we have to look to see if I-5 is greater than 0, and if it is, then we're going to take 12 and multiply it by F6, which is an absolute, and we're going to subtract K5 from that. All right, so you're taking your beginning balance, you're subtracting the amount you've paid on principal, and multiplying it by 12. And then we're going to put a 0 if it's false. All right, now, before you can pull anything down, some of these will work, some of them will not. And I'll show you. These three here are set up where they'll work, but you're going to have some zeros until we figure out the first column. All right, in order for this to work, you have to take your ending balance and make it your beginning balance for the following year. So I'm going to make this equal to J5. And then once I pull these down, you can see how it fills in. All right, so some number formatting issues we're going to have to clear up. Not a big deal. But overall, it's not too difficult as long as you understand how to lay out the if function. Like I said, if functions can get pretty complicated, especially when you're nesting them, so the best thing to do is just kind of break it down into individual functions and just worry about the different arguments for that function when you're setting it up. Okay. I'm going to move down to J20. And in J20, I'm going to type in subtotal. I'm going to select K20 through L20 and hit my auto sum button. In L21, let me see, at J21, let me put in down payment. Let me know what you're looking at. Like so. And then in L21, I can make it equal to D7, which is what my down payment was. And then I'm going to put total cost in here at the very end. Oops, not coast, cost. All right. And then I'm going to add these three numbers together. So I'm going to add K20 plus L20 plus L21. And if everything is correct, this number here should match this number here. And then all that's left to do is to set up the formatting. So I can select I5 and hit my format painter. And then I can do J5 through L5 to get those numbers correct. And then I6 through L19. I can right click and do the format to do the currency setup. So I'm going to go to number and do currency. And I'm going to choose the last option. Okay. So that all my numbers are now formatted.